Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the American Blood Trackers live stream. This week we have, of course, Ralph Bennett here again. I'm Kenny Mullins, and we have Shane Simpson. And Shane, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Shane Simpson, live in Minnesota, from originally from South Carolina. Been here about 16 years now. Started tracking about 8 years ago. Turkey hunt and deer hunt a lot. Got a YouTube channel. That's about it.
What's your YouTube channel?
Shane Simpson hunting.
Shane, I think people could remember that one.
Yeah, I could. I'm not smart enough to come up with this cool name for it, so I just came up with it.
Hey, that's all right. I do watch your stuff. You got some pretty good content there. That I used to be an avid turkey hunter, and then I started guiding fishing, and I'm so swamped during that time of the year that turkey hunting's kind of went to the side.
Yeah,
Um,
I love turkey, and I don't think I'd ever give it up for fishing.
yeah. Well, it's more about giving it up for income right now, or for me, anyways. But
Yeah.
um, so Shane, I see your shirt
One,
there.
one, one thing, if I've got the window open because these lights in here to give you some good lighting are putting up a lot of heat. And if it gets too noisy out this window, just let me know and I'll slide it shut.
Yeah, it sounds good to me right now.
Yeah, you came here.
I'm
Um,
good.
yeah, so let's jump right into it. You want to tell us a little bit about your app?
So yeah, this was kind of a thing we created. Well, it started with the Minnesota Tracking Dogs, which I'm a part of. I'm one of the admins. You know how crazy it gets during track season, especially during the rut. And we have our little private Facebook group and message groups where we can coordinate track requests that are coming in. We ended up building a website where hunters could go to it and submit a tracking request, and then that would send an email automatically to all the trackers on our network. And that was kind of the precursor to the app. And so I had the idea for the app, before that, but it's a lot of logistics that go into doing that and a lot of money. And so I wanted to test the theory out, and that tracking request form on our website was super successful. And so I was like, yeah, we need to build this app and then expand it. It'll allow for it to go nationwide and make our lives a lot easier. So basically, a hunter, downloads the app, submits a request, answers a few questions about the hunt, hit submit, and it goes out to all the trackers that are on the app in the region.
Yeah, and I'm actually on that app, and you do have a subscription plan, I guess you'd say.
Allow for it to go nationwide
Um,
and make our lives a lot easier. So basically,
um, someone must be playing it, but anyways,
I'm trying to share it. So
oh, okay. I was wondering what that was. So, anyways, there's a lot of.
answers a
Let me.
few
I'm going to
questions.
mute you for a minute, Ralph. All right, there we go. So I'm on here now, and I'm looking at the analytics, and you put a lot of, or I don't know if it's just you. Obviously, there's probably more people involved, but there's a lot into this. Like right now, I'm looking at the analytics, the recovery rate for both 39% firearm, 31% recovery rate. It shows the little
Little heat map or the grid for
yeah
the deer.
yeah the grid for the deer. And
Yeah, we're going to
go
be
ahead.
expanding. We're going to be expanding that portion of the app because our goal, or my goal, I have three partners that are involved with this. My buddy Garrett Prawl is from Minnesota, and Ryan Carpenter, and then Greg Goffrey, who's one of the co-owners of Tethered. We're all four went in on this together financially, and then we have a group of testers and a group of test trackers and a group of test hunters. And so when we get new versions of the app before it goes public, I send out the download to each group, and they don't know who each other is. They just the hunters submit requests, the trackers play around with the requests and play around. I'll test out the app before it goes live again with any updates. And so
Right.
we have a team of testers, about 20 testers, and then us four also. And so we're trying to, not all the ideas come from me. I kind of knew what I wanted to build into the app, but we get a lot of feedback from the trackers and test trackers and whatnot about, hey, it would be cool if it could do this. It would be nice if it could do that. And my goal all along was to keep this app free. But as anyone knows, nothing in life is free. It costs us a lot of money to build this app and maintain it. It's about the cost of a car payment a month just to keep it going on Amazon Web Services. And so right there, with no money coming in, we're paying a car payment for nothing, with money out of our pocket. So we have the analytics, which is data we're already collecting anyway from this, whether we were selling the analytics or not, that data is being collected. So I said, well, why don't we create an analytical program where people can see the success rates, average distance recovery, and et cetera, and charge a subscription for that. And that'll fund the app and allow the portion of the app where hunters can find trackers and keep it free for the trackers as well. Keep that portion free. And so that's what we're doing with that. And now we're investing some money for this fall to expand the analytics even more. So there'll be dozens of drop down menus where you can compare, deer shot in the beginning of the season to deer shot later in the season. I mean, whatever you can think of, you're out to kind of see, you'll be able to see it in the expanded analytics.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I've been looking at this, and it you can really read into it a lot. Especially if you have a lot of experience and you're looking at different stuff. But it's kind of amazing when you start looking at this. Some of these I'm just amazed at how they were unrecovered, which maybe just a thought. And I'm don't mean to put you on the spot or anything like that, but I'm looking at like a double lung shot that's unrecovered. Is there a place where they can put the reason why it wasn't recovered?
Yeah, and a lot of that's already being documented on the back end side of the app. It's just not available for us to see yet, and that's what the expanded analytics will show. You'll be able to answer those questions.
Okay.
Another thing that we're adding this fall is the ability for hunters and trackers to manually submit data. So in the cases where a dog wasn't needed, the hunter can say, "Hey, I shot this deer. I tracked it 200 yards, and I hit it here, and this is the equipment I'm using." And so one of the complaints we see is, "Oh, this is just data from people when they needed a dog," was worst case scenario. But we're going to have it where they can add manual submit stuff, and then the trackers will be able to go back and tracks that they didn't take on the app. They'll be able to manually submit it. Now, in the filters for the analytics, you'll be able to separate that out. Say if you don't want to see manually submitted data because there could be a bias, you could just see organically obtained data through the app. And we're going to have safeguards also to prevent, say, Broadhead Company A from paying a lot of employees to just manually submit a bunch of stuff that's favorable. So we're going
Right.
to include safeguards to prevent that as well. So there's a lot of added features coming that'll work that out. But we're like, to your question, yes, there's a lot of stuff being already collected. When a tracker completes a track, he marks it, that he recovered it or it was unrecovered, and I think there's actually a box that says ask why it wasn't recovered, et cetera. And so all that data is already saved. It's just not visible at this point to the end user.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through this. Like right now, I just pulled one up that was from January 26th, and it says it was date and time the animal was shot was January 26, 2024 at 1:48 p.m. And this happened to be in Alabama, and it has the hunter's name, contact number, request reason, states no blood, buck mule kicked real hard and jumped off the ground a foot. Um, and so I'm going to go into details. Jumped off the ground a foot or two, wind shot, lots of hair on the ground, some tracks running away but no blood, and then it has animal shot, antler deer, date animal was shot, time which I already went over. Then it goes into hunting height above animal 10 feet, shot distance 70 yards, position of animal when shot, quartering towards. The animal's reaction after the shot, mule kicked real hard and took off. Thought I heard a crash 20, 30 yards away, but could have just been it running. Weapon was firearm. Then pass through or non-pass through, unsure. Any blood found at the hit site or on the arrow, no blood found. Property lines nearby within 300 yards? Yes. If needed, does the hunter have permission to track those properties? No, but can obtain permission. And then it has the chart, and it says he believe he hit it in C3. I'm sorry, C11, which would be a double lung shot. And then all areas that hunter feels may have been hit by the projectile, unsure. Then it goes into part 5. Has the hunter tracked the animal yet? Yes. How long did the hunter wait before tracking? 1 hour. Total distance tracked so far 0 yards. Total number of people that helped track the animal 1. Have they made efforts to find the animal past last blood, circling out? And he said yes, which, obviously would make me question, how do you go 0 yards, but you circled out past last blood? But
Yeah,
the
well,
main point is this is very detailed.
yeah, yeah.
You
And
know,
and
um,
and back to your original question, when they're not recovered, we really don't know that they actually hit it where they said they did. And that,
oh,
and
exactly.
and the only time we can verify that they hit where they said they hit on a non-recovery is through trail cam pictures, or another hunter shot it later in the season. Maybe, I mean, I've tracked plenty of deer that we didn't recover, and then their cousin shot it during rifle season, and then they said, yeah, it had a wound on its leg, so I didn't hit it like a heart shot like they thought. They just hit the bottom of the leg, and the deer lived. And so
Right.
in those instances, and we're working on building that in where you can go back and edit um, a track and say it was seen. We have the follow-up form that, like, if you mark a track as uncompleted, I mean as unrecovered, 30 days later the hunter gets a question that says, "Hey, this guy came out and tracked for you, and they didn't recover it. Has the deer been seen since?" And they'll say, "Yeah, I got trail cam pictures of it." It'll overwrite that data, and we're working on improving that part of it. It has some little glitches at this point, but that'll be fixed before this upcoming season. So, but in the data, yeah, for the ones unrecovered, we really don't have a great idea where they actually hit it. And
Yeah. And,
and
and my thing was, is there an option? Because I haven't been able to accept a track off of the app yet. It's
yeah,
still word's still getting out. I know it's
hmm
gonna it's gonna grow more and more.
it's a little
But
slower down south to take off than it is up north. The Midwest really embraced it, and the
right.
upper northern half of the country did.
So my question is there a place for the tracker to put some input as to the details of the track, what went on, or anything like that?
You mean after they took the track?
Yes.
Yeah, so whenever you take a track on the app, when you're done with it, you mark the track as complete on the app, and it'll ask you, it's conditional questions. So your first question, you answer it, and depending on how you answer it, it'll ask a follow-up question. Like, did you recover the animal? And you put yes, and the next question will be, well, how far did it go and from last, from the, I can't remember if it's hit site to recovery or from point of loss to recovery. If you answer no, then it'll say, well, how far did you extend the track? And then each answer is conditional, like I said. So, and then there's a comment box at the bottom, and you can put other information. So, like I said earlier, that all that's being collected is still saved on our database, and
Okay.
at some point we'll make it available. It just costs money to do things like that. I mean, we already have it, but to tell the developers, say, hey, I want this to be visible. Okay, we got to do this, we got to do that. It's this much per hour. This how many hours it's going to take. It's a slow process. If we had $1 million, it'd be built,
Right.
But
Right.
it's probably going to cost that much after we're all said and done.
Well, I think the bit, my personal opinion is, if the data is being collected and you could share it in another outlet, maybe your website or something at the end of the year, I think
Well, the
most
problem with
trackers.
it being the problem with it being collected, it's on a server or something in the back end. It's not easily digestible.
Oh,
When I
okay.
asked one time, I said, "Can you give me all the tracks for the broadheads, mechanicals, and the fixed?" I wanted to make a little graphic to post on social media about these are the top broadheads we tracked for, and these are the ones that had the top recoveries. He sent me this spreadsheet thing was a bunch of gibberish to my eyes. His computer
Right.
could read it easily. So it's basically a database, and geeks out there that are smarter than me, they could probably look at it and say, yeah, this is that, and this means this. But it's not something we can just request and say. Plus, every time I request something from the developer, it's I feel like it's an annoyance just to get little tidbits of stuff that if we're just patient and wait for us to finish building the analytical part into it, then you can ask what you want to on the app, and then we
Gotcha.
don't have to bug them to dig it up.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Just some questions that people have brought before me that I figured I'd, while you were on, go ahead and ask those questions where people could hear it. Um, the biggest
Yeah, I
thing that
mean,
I hear a lot is, well, I don't get any tracks from it. It's new, and that's what people needs to understand. It's new. Um, some people are like, I don't want to use an app, or I don't. It's like Vicky Church said, it's another tool in the toolbox.
well,
Why not?
yeah, and I tell you what happens and what would happen down south. Like I'm looking at the Florida network on social media on Facebook, and I see hunters posting on there, like, hey, I shot this and I may need some help, and they're still networking the old-fashioned way, like, oh, so and so is going to cover it. And I think as soon as if I was to submit a request in Florida right now, it would go out to a pile of trackers, and I would get a tracker in no time. I think as long as once the hunters realize there's a bunch of Florida trackers, a bunch of Georgia trackers on the app. I mean, there's 1,300 trackers, vetted trackers on the app now across the nation, and another few hundred provisional trackers on there. So there's no shortage of trackers on there. Up here in Minnesota, if a track came in, sometimes I couldn't even open up the app to see what the request was about, and the tracker already had it covered. It's taken off that well up here.
Right.
But word of mouth, it just needs more word of mouth down there.
Yeah, and it'll come. There's still going to be some people that don't want to use an app, and
Yep.
that's fine. There's other outlets, like Facebook or lists out there. And one thing I want to share, and I've told several people this. I feel like you do a wonderful job at attempting to vet the people on the list.
I
You
appreciate
you
that.
work
Yeah.
yeah, you work with people in each state, and you've sent me a pile of names, asking if I know them. That same thing with certifications. You've been in constant communication, and I know I appreciate that. And I don't know if other apps are out there are doing that or not. I know Ralph and I, we help manage two state groups, and I can tell you, you're the only app that has contacted us, said, hey, what do you know about this person?
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't,
it's no easy task. I can tell you that because um, the first year we launched last fall when we launched and thousands, over 1,000 trackers signed up. I was sitting at my computer for 15 hours a day. No, that's no lie. I get up in the morning at 6 a.m. I'm sitting here, and other than a few bathroom breaks throughout the day and a stop to eat, I was at this computer until 10, 11 o'clock at night or later, vetting trackers, trying to. And some states it's easy, like Minnesota. We already have established network. We know who's who. Um, and in other states where they don't have a network or people or a good contact to say who is this person? Do you know anything about them? Do you know anything about their tracking abilities? But I know personally from both ends, both sides of it, as a hunter and a tracker, and so that experience kind of helps me in my guidance on what to do on the app as far as vetting trackers, because I was a hunter looking for a tracker, and I knew this was last fall, as a matter of fact, and I knew where I was hunting there wasn't many trackers on the app in that area that had been vetted yet, and I needed a tracker, and I didn't have my dog was 11 hours away, so I didn't have my own dog, and so I went on Facebook, and I ended up with a tracker that had no business out there charging money to come track for deer because their dog was not trained. I saw that as soon as they put them on the ground. And so that's the other reason I want to vet trackers on here. I want to make sure that when a hunter gets on the app and submits a request, that they've got a good opportunity of their deer being recovered or get an answer at least. Like experienced trackers say, yeah, my dog's saying the deer's not mortally wounded. I don't want people getting scammed out of money, whether intentionally or even trackers with good intentions just aren't trading well. So we're trying to eliminate that.
Yeah, and that's very important, and that's something we've done for years now in Florida. We everyone is required to go through an apprenticeship program. I mean, I actually had an apprentice. I say an apprentice. I mean, he was through our program. He was an apprentice. He had 30 years experience. And he was assigned to me as his mentor. And I went on tracks with him, and he's like, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I think I'm wasting my time here. You know what you're doing. Your dogs are awesome. You're making the right calls." But we still made him go through that process so that we could get out in the field, or we could communicate on the phone. We build the relationship. We make sure that he's making the right, he or she, I'm
Yep.
not discriminating against sex, he or she is making the right decisions, you know for ethical recoveries, because that's key. We want ethical recoveries. We want to know that they're willing to work with their fellow trackers, and they're doing what's best for the hunter. So we said from the beginning, we don't care if you've have 3 days experience or 30 years experience. You're going to go through that process. And
Yeah.
now we are extending that into Georgia, which we've gained some pushback on that. And people doesn't like change, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're giving the opportunities the hunters the best opportunity at recovering their deer.
Yep. And we added something similar to that on the app, the provisional accounts, and some people really like that, and some people, I've heard some small complaints about it. I wouldn't say it's major complaints, because we're letting trackers on there that may not have much experience with those provisional accounts. But I kind of used other states as a guideline for, if you're a provisional account on the app, you can't charge. You can do that on your own outside the app, but on the app with a provisional account, you're not allowed to charge. You can accept tips. There is a delayed notification, so all the tracking requests immediately go out to the vetted trackers, and if no one picks it up, then it goes out to the provisional accounts, and it shows the hunter. It says, look, if a provisional tracker applied to your track, it says, look, this is either a new tracker or a tracker that we haven't fully, verified their, skill level or their dog's skill level. So, but it gives you an opportunity to use the dog as a last resort before you start grid searching, because no one else is available. And so
Right.
I think that's a good thing. Some people, I saw a complaint today because saying that, that's just a way for people to get tracks. Well, they're not going to get experience, otherwise. They can publish it locally, but or for their friends and stuff. But how often are your friends going to need a tracker? So I think it helps in both cases, especially when it gets busy during the rut. When we got, I think, 1,000 requests in like one weekend here in Minnesota during gun season. We have 50 trackers. We cannot cover that many tracks in a weekend, obviously. And so
Right.
having some of these provisional trackers that give the hunter at least, hey, I can bring my dog out, give me $20 gas money, I can try my dog. We've been training, but this is our first year. And a lot of some of our provisionals, they end up having a great season, recovering 40 deer. The average for a leash tracking dog, and now they've been moved up to a regular tracker on our app because they had so many recoveries last year.
So we've got a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to try to
Yeah.
go through in order. Some of them's coming through text messages to me. Some of them's coming through on here. We'll start with this one that came in. It says, Shane, can you please explain how at the end of the track, the tracker actually has the ability to manage the comment/critique that's done by the hunter? So this person is saying their concern is the hunters are able to rate the tracker. And as you know, some hunters, they just don't understand that their deer's not dead, or they don't want to accept it. And, this is something I've heard from a lot of people that says, hey, I don't want to get on there and have a bad review because the hunter is upset and my dog did everything it's supposed to do. How do we combat that? So I think if you could answer that, it would help, I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, there is kind of a way around it. I don't want to say it publicly because then no one would complete tracks. um, but only the hunters can't leave reviews for random trackers out there. You actually have to take a track for them, and then I guess I will spill the beans. They can't leave a review until you complete the track and mark it as complete. So if you got some guy out there who's just drunk and a hunter that is and doesn't know anything, it's just a bad hunter, someone you probably put on your blacklist or do not track list, at the end of the day, you don't have to mark the track as complete, and then they can't leave a review. It's kind of cheating the system, though. I mean, we would prefer people just mark the tracks complete and then just take it as it is. If you do have someone that leaves a review that's bad, you could always report it to us, and then we'll look at it, and we think it warrants being removed. We can have the developer remove it.
Okay.
And so there are ways to do that. We don't have an easy way like you just call me up and I click a button and it's gone. So there is a process, if you don't think it's warranted. But the whole point of the ratings and review is to weed out, say, the bad trackers. Because we want, if you see a tracker there that's got 3 stars and he's had 20 tracks, obviously it's not 100, it's the tracker. If he's got that low rate. I can tell you this: we haven't seen that as an issue after the first season. Most hunters were leaving 4.9 and 5 stars for every track, even on non-recoveries, because they understood, that these guys, what they were doing. Even up here in the Midwest, or Minnesota, for instance, where tracking is relatively new, the hunters, even when they didn't recover it, the hunters realized that the dog knew what it was doing. Dog, you put them on the hit site, and then they go all the way to last blood. The dog knows what it's doing, So that hasn't been an issue, but there are ways to correct it if it becomes a problem.
Gotcha. And that's probably the biggest one that I've heard from people around here.
Yeah.
So I think that was good to answer, and because as you know, you have those hunters that you just can't please no matter what.
Yeah, and one of the
They don't want to
one of the
accept.
yeah one of the things we're going to add also in the app that's coming, like I have a list of features I want to add, is that do not track list, like I mentioned earlier. We have it. I imagine you guys have it too. We have hunters we track for that maybe lied about a property line and ended up having us trespassing and we didn't realize it. I won't track for that person again because they were dishonest with me and almost got me in trouble. I put them on, write them on paper and do not track for this person again. But that's hard to keep up with, and we share it with our fellow trackers in the area. Well, we're going to build that into the app where if you have a hunter do something like that, maybe they do something that causes you not want to track for them again, or not have them any of your friends track for them. You can put them on a do not track list and then share it with your other trackers on the app. And so if the request comes in, it'll have the hunter wouldn't see it, but we'd see it on the tracker side that says, a little asterisk beside his name. It says, do not track, and here's the reason why, because Shane had an instance where with this guy. You can still track for him, but at least you would have some warnings. We're also going to build it the same thing on the hunter side. If they had a bad experience with a tracker, they could, mark that tracker, flag that tracker as a do not track, do not have them track for me again, or however I would word it.
Right.
And just the hunter would see it. I don't know if we'd have it where they could share it, but it'd be personally, like if I submitted a request, maybe I want to block that one particular tracker from getting my tracking request and just go out to everyone else. So those are kind of things we'll build into there also, but each feature we got to take it one step at a time. What we want to build in there first.
Right. Yeah, I personally feel overall it's a great platform. And some of these questions I see coming through like that one. I mean, that's probably the most common one I've heard. We got one here from John Clark. It says, I've had 3 tracks on the app, but only took one. I missed the other 2. Is there a notification on the app that I am missing where it will alert me?
He's probably got an iPhone. I don't know what it is. Android, and he may not. He may have an Android, but Android users, or the Android platform, has been seamless since we launched this. The notifications are coming through, and I don't know what it is with iPhones. my daughter has an iPhone. I try to play around with it and see if and we always get the notification on it. And it's isolated to, it seems, certain people, and I don't know if they're just unfamiliar with how you turn on and off notifications on it. But there have been a few instances where that's been an issue. But for the most part, the notifications are going out, and it may just be operator error. We are adding SMS notifications as well that you'll be able to opt in and out of. So not only will it send a push notification to your phone, it'll send a text message saying new tracking request on the app, open it up. Because I did hear some people saying, hey, I didn't hear my phone, make a chime or whatever, but I looked at it later and I saw the little number beside the app and I opened it up and there was a new request. I just didn't hear the notification chime. Again, that was on the iPhones, it seemed like, primarily. And so we figured adding SMS would help eliminate that problem.
Gotcha. So we'll move on to the next question. Vicky Church said, is there any way to have a picture by state of how many trackers there are?
So I've been trying to, I'm the one that edits the website, and if it looks kind of cheesy, that's on me. But one of the things I was going to do is add a page with a picture of the United States and put like how many trackers are in each state. I do not think we should put like, some people want to know who the trackers are, like some app stuff. The whole point of the app was from my perspective, was so you don't get bothered with phone calls and text messages throughout all hours of the day and night. There's not going to be a list on there and you can call to. Otherwise, we'd just be doing the same thing that Facebook is doing. It allows, you submit a request and it goes out, and then the trackers that are interested can reply, offer their service, and then you can pick which one you want. But at the very least, I think I'm going to put a map up there of the United States and put how many vetted trackers are in each state on the app and how many provisionals are on each state, so people at least know how many are in that area. Now, when a hunter submits a tracking request, it does tell you how many trackers received your request. We do need to edit that on the app because it goes out to, it tells the hunter every tracker that received the request, and if a tracker has their range set at the max 300 miles, that tracker is obviously not going to take that track, but it's getting counted to the hunter that 40 trackers seen your request, and maybe only 15 of them are within 100 miles of you. So we got to have that edited on the app so that the hunter only sees how many trackers within 100 miles saw their request, so they don't get a false impression that, hey, 100 trackers saw it, so surely somebody's going to get to me.
Gotcha. So we'll move on to the next one. Michael Beck says, how and who has been verifying the trackers that are on the app?
Shoot, there's about 50 people.
Yeah.
I've got, in most states, I have contacts, like at least 2 contacts in each state. And I'm not necessarily taking their word for it solely. They'll give me, I have a Google spreadsheet for each state, and I added them on that sheet. I'll add a name whenever they apply to the app. They sign up, I put their name and their phone number, their contact info. And my contact will either, put yes or no on the spreadsheet, or they'll text me and say, yeah, this guy's good to go. He's been tracking for a while. The dog's qualified. They're qualified as a team. Or they'll reply, I don't know who this is. Let me do some research. And they'll maybe either contact the person or ask around. And then push comes to shove. If I have to do it, then I'll contact them myself and try to get a feel for who they are and what experience they have. It's some of these folks that don't have a big social media presence, or a lot of people in the tracking community don't know who they are. It's a lot harder to approve them because there's it's almost like investigating them, and you spend a lot of effort. I spent 8 hours one day trying to find out about just a couple trackers, and so sometimes I just push them off to the side and take care of the ones that I can easily approve or disapprove. And then I'll get back to them later. So some people may have been waiting for months, and then other people may be waiting for minutes to get approved.
Yeah, and I've done the same thing with helping you. There's still a couple of names on that spreadsheet you're talking about that I either couldn't get to, I can't verify anything because they don't have a social media presence or they don't call me back. And
Yep.
And then I've had some that, I didn't mean to do that. Don't have a dog yet, but I'm getting a dog, and
Yeah,
You know.
and I've had a lot of them. They sign up, and then when I start trying to verify them or vet them, they'll reply, "Oh, I'm no longer interested in being on the app." And I don't know if it's because they're truly not interested, or oh, now he's going to start digging into me, and then I've got to prove myself, and I don't think I can do that. And, maybe that's why. So, but each person, for the most part, we try to make sure that they if a hunter ends up with them through the app, that they're going to have a team that's going to give them a good opportunity at recovery.
Uh, let's see. Courtney says, "Is there a way to track tracks that don't come in through the app?" I think you've
Yes,
already answered that
yeah.
one.
I'll briefly mention again. We're going to add a feature where you can manually type that in to the app. It's not available right now, but hopefully this fall sometime. The thing that we're doing in Minnesota and other states, our trackers, they get a direct call. They go ahead and tell the hunter, "Hey, I'm on my way. I'll be there this evening. Go ahead and submit a request on the app and fill out all the questions, and you'll see me apply for it and just accept me as your tracker." And then once they get done tracking, they can tell that hunter, "Would you leave me a review on the app?" So not only are they collecting data that they'll eventually get to see in their personal analytics, that's what the main reason they're doing it, and they'll also get ratings and reviews. And the more ratings and reviews they can get, obviously that looks good to a hunter when they get 3 trackers applied to their track and they see this guy's got 30 reviews and they're all 5 stars, and this one's only got 3 reviews and they're, all 5 stars. This guy's obviously been taking a lot of tracks on the app.
Gotcha. So I skipped over Mike here. He said, "You ready to come down and track in the JW Corbett?"
No, I'll stay away from the snakes and venomous spiders and crocodile or gators and everything else down there.
Yeah,
There's
and
nothing
crocodiles in some areas.
Yeah, boa constrictors, whatever. There's nothing up here that can hurt you in Minnesota except for I guess the bears and the wolves, but I never see those hardly.
So here's another one. Says, "Is there a way to get only tracks for the state you track in? I am close to the PA border, but do not track in PA, but I get alerts on tracks in PA."
So there's a workaround, I guess. So if you download an app that's like fake GPS, you can find that on the App Store or wherever. Or you can manually physically drive away from the border, and then reset your location, and then that way you can set your radius so where it doesn't go over the border too much. But the app Fake GPS, I've used it before just to see what's going on in other parts of the country. I'll set my location as Florida, and then I'll extend my range out to 300 miles, and then I can see all the tracking requests down there. So yeah, you could use something like a little cheat like that. There's no way in the app just to say, "Hey, I want to draw my radius." It's just a circular radius. There's nothing really we can do about it.
Yeah, and like me, I have mine set to the max because I'll typically help someone. I mean, if I see a request come through and it doesn't get snatched up, I'll start making phone calls and help out.
Yeah. I actually now have an admin version, so I can see the entire country. And let me tell you, my phone blows up during the rut nationwide. We had,
Yeah.
however many thousands came through last year. My phone was nonstop pinging.
So Michael Pritt says, "So people that charge for tracks are they more likely to only call for their trophies, big or small, hoping to find that and willing to pay for that versus someone shooting a meat deer, and if they can't find the deer without a dog and say screw it and not willing to pay X amount?"
Well, in Minnesota, I imagine that happens, but in Minnesota, none of our trackers charge. We're all tip based, and we typically get requests for does and bucks. I will say this: most of our doe tracks are in the early season, but during the rut, I think most people are actually targeting bucks, so not many does are getting shot. Me personally, I don't charge because I don't want that teenager or that college student that's doesn't have a lot of cash. I think you and I talked about this, Kenny. I don't want them not calling a dog to track their doe just because they're afraid it's going to cost a lot of money. I'd rather find their deer for them. But yeah, I
That's
do
right.
see that where people are only willing to spend the money and have a tracker come out when it's a buck. That's just the nature of some hunters.
Yeah, the majority of us in Florida do not charge either.
Yeah.
other states,
Do
they
you see
do.
many
And
requests for does?
oh yeah, yeah, a
Oh yeah.
bunch.
So I made a mock-up of our expanded analytics. I posted it on our Facebook page, the TrakR Facebook page, and it was basically a mock-up, but it is based on kind of what we've been seeing. You'll see like the number of tracker requests coming in the early part of the season for does versus buck, and you'll see as it gets close to the rut, those two lines intersect, and now the does are less, and now it's all buck requests or mostly buck requests. That is a trend we see in reality, and that's kind of why the mock-up is designed like that. But you'll be able to see that in the expanded analytics later.
Gotcha.
Hey,
Um,
check
Go
that
ahead.
Travis's question. I had this. I was doing it while y'all were talking and changing my certification, and it wouldn't let me either. Travis had that question.
So
Yes.
yeah,
So you have to contact Shane.
yeah.
Okay.
So we
Hey
we
Shane.
I know your question. So I had a lot of emails come in about that in the last few weeks. People trying to update their certification because there's a lot of tests going on right now nationwide.
Yeah.
It used to be where you could change it yourself, but there was two reasons we edited that, so changed it so only we can change it. That's to keep people from signing up and they passed a UBT1 or they didn't pass anything and getting approved for the app, maybe as a provisional. Then they'd go back and switch it to UBT3 or ABTA finished or whatever it is. I don't know of any cases where that happened, but it was kind of being proactive to prevent that. So if you need to be updated, you contact me, and then I verify it with the specific organization, whether it's UBT or the ABTA or whoever, that you did truly pass that test.
And
The other thing is by editing that on the app and allow me to do that, I can type in whatever I want. So if we add future certifications, say like the JGHV, the versatile dogs, whatever, for their test, if we decide to add their certifications, I can just type that in. I don't have to have them reprogram the app and send out an update.
and Kenny got with me. I don't know if you've relayed it to him, Kenny, but we'll be sending you probably every time we update and get new tests come in. We're going to send you a spreadsheet of everybody, and it'll be just a running spreadsheet that you'll have to keep up with all of the ABTA stuff.
Yeah, and I guess you should mention to the folks that there's no personal information on there. It's just a name
Right.
and what test they pass. That's
Yep,
all I need.
that's all it'll be is name, and like right now we've got 6 tests, so it'll have every one of them already. We already keep track of it, so we just got to do it in the format that you want it, and that'll be
Yeah,
easy.
so if anyone needs it updated, just they can email gettrackernow@gmail.com or send me a personal message on social media or however I got my phone with me all the time and I can update it within seconds.
Okay. There's more questions, but I have a question I just thought about, and my question stems from Jeremy's question here. It says last year I get a notification before I could open and review it. It was taken. So that takes me to my question that I was holding off on, but he hit on it. Is there a way to track how long the wait time was? Is that an option right now? Is it somewhere where the tracking can put in how long it was after the shot that they tracked it?
Yeah, that's in the question for the hunter when they put in there how long did they wait before tracking?
Right,
Or
but
you
I
talk
mean, as far as how long did the handler, the tracker, wait before they put on it?
Oh, you mean like how long from the time the track came in and then how long before they actually started tracking it? What was their
Yeah, how
wait
long
time?
after the shot? So let's say it was a gut shot and it was not recovered. Is there a way for you to maybe trend trackers that are jumping on these too soon?
Yeah,
And
because when they start a track or do the track and they mark it as complete, they put on there when they started the track, and and when all that stuff is, so it's in the database. From the time the animal was shot based on what the hunter put, and when they tracked it based on what the tracker put, and then we can see what those times are, and then we would see a trend like we're seeing tracks, say gut shots, that were tracked anything less than 9 hours or have a far fewer recovery rate than ones that were tracked 12 hours after the shot or higher. We could see trends like that. Yeah, so that I know what you're getting at.
Yeah,
That
because that's
is our
something that we run into, and we correct on our end through our the Facebook group, I guess you'd say. If we see a tracker that's constantly jumping on a gut shot deer 2 hours after it's shot, we have a
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
so like to your question, yes, it is being collected already. Again, that's something that'll be coming out with the expanded analytics. That's the most expensive update we're going to have on this app. It's thousands and thousands of dollars to build that into there. If and like I mentioned earlier, if I didn't, I think I did. The app is free for people to use. So if you want to help us finance that part, subscribe to the analytics that's on there now, or go on our website and buy a hoodie or a T-shirt. Because we're trying to keep this app free, but at the same time we're trying to use it to its full potential because it has the potential to tell us a lot, in the tracking world.
right? Yeah, that was my thing. Is if you so like he said, you have people that just jump on it super fast and they're going in too early and making bad
Yeah.
decisions. You know, obviously you're saying there's a way to track that, but is there going to be a way where you are going to start looking at people and saying, okay, why are you at like a 50% recovery rate on gut shots? Is that something that you are eventually going to start looking at? Okay, maybe we need to look at some of these trackers.
Yeah. So with each addition to the app, then I realize what I can see and what I can't see, and then I'm going like you're thinking, yes, I will be able to see this. Maybe we build it into the app. It just gives a warning to the tracker. Hey, your recovery rates on gut shots is far below what they should be, or what the norm is. Maybe give them a little note that says consider waiting a little bit longer or something like that. I don't know. We can build this, and that's the point of having these test trackers or getting feedback from the public. Anybody can send me feedback and give me suggestions on. I don't want to be the one that builds this app with just my line of thinking. I want to think of all the possibilities. So, right now, no, it's not something we can see right now. But I think it's very, I think it's easily adapted to the app to do that. To see those trends and say, okay, this tracker is jumping on these tracks way too soon and causing non-recoveries.
Yeah, because that's in it's. I just thought about it when I read his comment, and that's why I said, you know what, there's got to be a way. And it actually, I'll go down to another
I,
question that brought that up is how are you going to know if these trackers are legitimately doing what they're supposed to be doing? And that also stemmed from this question. It says, if a person were to sign up as a provisional tracker, how would they get moved to a more advanced position in the future? I considered signing up as provisional, as this will be my first year. However, I don't intend to stay in that entry level position as my dog matures and advances. So that kind of went hand in hand with the other one. Is obviously you got to have a way to know when that provisional tracker is ready, but at the same time, what if that other person is not doing right? So that's what led to my question.
yeah, the app is being improved and built on much slower than I would like, and that's due to finances. Um, I've thought about a lot of these things about looking at tracks, looking at where the hunter states they hit and stuff. You can kind of get a ballpark of when you should track a deer based on when it's hit and its reaction, this and that. And I can ideally see it in the future where it would give like a quarterback rating to a track, like the degree of difficulty of recovering this deer based on all the information you have, and be able to see that with trackers where I don't have to. So right now, to answer his question real quick, if you sign up as a provisional and then after several months of tracking that season, and most likely the following season when it's going to happen, someone in a network or someone in that state says, "Hey, man, they did a bang up job last year. They recovered 20 deer. Their dog is definitely ready. I'll move them up." Or if I don't have someone in that area, I'll have them send me recovery pictures and of them and their dog with the animal they recovered, like a minimum of 20 pictures. And I may even reach out to some of the hunters they tracked for and get a feedback. And so there is a way to move up, I personally would like to see provisional trackers moved up after a season. But if there's trackers out there that are only casually tracking and they only took 3 or 4 tracks, they're going to remain as a provisional because they haven't done enough to prove themselves. So it's up to you how quickly you move up as a provisional. But anyway, to answer the other one, yeah, we could build that into the app eventually. Right now, we're just working on the basics of the app, the foundation of the app, and some of those functionalities. Our priority again is the expanded analytics. We're adding the manual edition where you can enter data manually, the blacklisting of hunters and trackers, that feature. I have a long list of probably 24 items that I want to see on the app, but it's just going to be slow going.
And I would say, Sean, it's also a good idea to get with your state Facebook group, because like Shane said, that's another resource because, you're going to build a relationship with those trackers and they're going to get to know how you are as a tracker, and Shane will reach out to them and they'll give feedback. So that'd be another avenue.
Yeah,
This,
and a state network is a good location to go to in general, just to support them, whether you want to be a part of the state network or not. A lot of them have like membership dues, and they use those membership dues to fund testing events in your area. And if you're wondering why is there not a testing event in my area, then maybe because there's no state network. That's what we're relying on. Like we held 2 of them here in Minnesota last year, and then one this year, and we're going to hold I think a super big one next year. So join that state network, or at least support them, and again, those guys are the ones that get back to me and say, yeah, they're ready to be on the app or they're ready to be migrated to a regular account.
right. And there are cases where we have apprentices in our network that they're not ready after one season, and we have that conversation with them. Ralph and I was just talking about that today. That's a conversation we have with them. We explain why, and of course, when you reach out to us, we'll give our feedback. So again, I like the app, but I also see the benefit to these state networks, and you're not trying to replace the state network completely. You said yourself, hey, there's a benefit to it.
Yeah, exactly. I told like our Minnesota group, I said the last thing I want to do is make a state network irrelevant because of the app. And that was one of the concerns that he brought up to me. What happens if someone doesn't want to be in the state network and they just feel like, well, I can get tracks through the app? Well, we are working on other things to make the app or make the state network kind of the go-to place. But your state network also holds the testing events and and everything else, and so there is a place for them, and I don't think they'll ever go away. And plus the community you have, like I'm saying this just because I'm part of the Minnesota group. I think we have one of the best state networks in the nation. I mean, everyone gets along. They put up a lot of their personal money, and I'm sure I guess I'm kind of proud of this state network up here, what they're doing for us, or what they're doing in general for the tracking community.
Right, and that's something we were talking about the other day. Not you and I, but actually it was some people in the Northeast. I said, the apps are great, and I see them being an intricate part of the tracking and hunting community in the future. But one thing you can't replace with an app is the social interaction of these state networks on social media. The stories, right. So that's something else to consider. And, I really appreciate that you support the state networks, because there are some people out there that doesn't, and, just like the drone versus dog thing, I don't, for me personally, if the hunter's getting help, that's what matters. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And if you lose that mission, you're not doing it for the right reasons. You're not gonna make the right decisions, and it's going to be at the expense of the hunter. So Bob Plubell asked, one more question, looking at updates, again about notifications, but I think the SMS is going to take care of that.
Yeah.
Um,
And then iOS, I give iPhone general, users in general, I give them a hard time about iPhones because Apple just tries their best to segregate them from the rest of the world, no matter what platform or device they're using. And I think a lot of times it's Apple that's causing these headaches and not the user itself. It just, you know how it is. They're finally coming out with USB-C for their phones.
yeah.
But we won't go down that
Um,
rabbit hole. I give them enough. I give them enough hell.
all right, here's a good one. Tommy Jackson. As a new tracker with a new dog, how do you guys suggest to approach a hunter with an unproven dog? My personal suggestion is you approach it with having a mentor in place, and run the tracks by your mentor. Run the details by them. And be honest with the hunter. Don't just go out there and say, "Oh yeah, I've got a tracking dog." Don't oversell you or your dog,
You know,
and make sure you build that relationship with another veteran team that will support you. And
I'll tell
you
you
guys
what I
want to add
did here in
anything to that?
Minnesota. I'll tell you what I did here in Minnesota because there was no Minnesota wasn't legal when I started tracking. I was tracking in Wisconsin, and I didn't know any other trackers. And so what I did was track for, friends or whatever. I say, hey, you shoot a deer. If it, as long as it runs out of sight and you don't see it where it drops, call me and I'll come track it just to give my dog some real world tracks. Plus I worked with her a lot in her training. And then when it came time to track for the real world, I was nervous, man. It was like going on my first date or something. But I explained to the hunters, look, I'm new to this. I'm gonna try my best. I've worked hard training her, and it makes it easier when you don't do anything but accept tips. If you don't charge a fee, that made it a lot easier for me. And say, hey, if we find your deer and you feel like I did a good job, you can tip me whatever you like. If you don't think I did a good job, then you don't owe me a dime. So that part made it easier for me as far as with not charging anything.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we
So
didn't we didn't have a network at the time when I started.
yeah, I mean that. I remember before all the social media networks. Um, so here's, oops, we'll click on
Yeah.
this, and I may, crap. Mike Payne says, "Can you add exotics to the list of services?"
Yeah, we are expanding the list this fall. That's next on the agenda, right there, the expanded analytics. With the addition of drones to the app, there also will be services like searching for lost pets and livestock, et cetera. And then the general public will actually be able to submit a request as soon as they select lost pet. All the other questions disappear. Well, it becomes conditional. They never see the ones about what was the position of the deer and how far up you're. It's just like I lost my cat, and it would only go out to drone operators, for instance. Or if you're a dog tracker and you decide to add lost pets to your services, then you would get that request as well. So we will be adding exotics and lost pets and other things. And Jasper, hush. Um, anyway, sorry, I lost. It make it easier if I guess should it be just boxes exotics or should it be um, divided up because there's different types of exotics and so I guess a tracker may want to know what type of exotic they're tracking. That's something I'm not familiar with down there in Texas and whatnot.
Yeah, and I track exotics and high fences here. Axis, black buck, some of the Asian elk, and I can't remember their scientific name, but um,
Yeah, but
you know,
my point is like I don't track bears. I mean, we have bears in Minnesota. I just don't plan to track them. And so someone that tracks exotics may track elk or whatever other kind of animal they have down there in the high fence, but they may not track a specific animal. So do we need to, break that exotic list down to a more defined list for the trackers to select from? I guess would be my question.
yeah, me personally, I would think exotics would cover it, and then they could choose from there.
Yeah, they could. I guess they could always talk to the hunter and then rescind their request or their offer if it's something they
Right.
don't want to track.
So Darren Miner has a good question here. Would you like to talk about adding drone operators to the app and what criteria you would use? Will a hunter have a choice to select if they want a drone or a dog?
Yeah, so I've been talking to a veteran drone operator and a couple of people actually. What should the vetting process be on the app? Right now, it's not too stringent. We're making sure they have their pilot's license for drones, a Part 107 from the FAA. I dig around in their background a little bit. If I don't see anything that that's glaring, then they get approved. Especially if they're part of some of these drones already been tracking and recovering deer. I've been adding to the app. There's only, I think I have 29 listed on the website, but there's not that many. There's 29 in the queue, and there's only a few have been approved. And yes, to your question about Darren about the tracking requests, the hunters will pick where they want their tracking request to go. If they only want it to go out to dogs, they just pick dog. If they want it to go just to drones, they choose drone. If they want to go to both, then it'll go to both. And so the hunters, that's something we'll be revamping in the hunter request form here soon, is they choose what type of tracker it goes to. There's some people that don't think highly of the drones or don't like the idea of adding them to the app. I think they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And I think adding them to the app allows us to give a one-stop shop for hunters looking for help, because they're going to try and find a drone if they want to find a drone with or without the app. But the other thing it does, it gives accountability to the drone. Uh, when they complete a track on the app, the hunter is going to be asked, just like with the dog trackers, hey, this tracker marked your completed your track and marked the animal as recovered. Is this true? The hunter answers that question. So the drone operators and the dog trackers can't lie about it and say, yeah, I recovered it, and when they in fact didn't. The hunter, has to tailgate that deer to be a recovery. Now, the drone operator will be asked, did you locate the animal? And was it dead or alive? And then the next question is, did you recover it? Like, did the hunter tag the animal? You know, and so that counts as a recovery once they tag the animal or tailgate the animal. There was one other thing. Oh yeah, there's a lot of dog tracking teams that are adding drones to their arsenal anyway, so it only makes sense to add drones for those guys. And there's a lot of positives to the drones. There's some negatives to it as well, but I think a team that has both, that's going to be a pretty unstoppable team, I believe, in the future.
Yeah, and that's something I've done. I do like that you're making sure they have the Part 107. I'll tell you, I've been through that process, and you do learn a lot on the Part 107. And probably one of the biggest things we talked about this last week. We put together a certification for wounded game recovery with drones that we've been working on, and Darren's been involved with it. Joe Tenney, we'd reach out to him, and some others. Sorry if I'm forgetting. But the big thing that I've seen,
how does
and
that work?
so I'll send that to you. So here's the big thing, and I even got some pushback from dog guys that have drones. One of the issues that I see with drones is they don't go in there and they don't look at a shot site and analyze where was that deer hit. Well, if you don't do that and you just go off the word of the hunter and they say, "Oh, I made a perfect shot," well, you went in there and you see, "Oh, it's liver shot or it's gut shot." You just put the drone up in the air and you go fly it. Now you located a deer that's alive. What happens then? So I felt like Ralph and I talked about this too. And several others, we felt like, that should be part of the training and certification. You should be able to do a thorough hunter interview. And even I mentioned it to Darren. I said, he's like, well, we don't go look at the shot site. Well, why not? What if it's only been an hour or 2 hours and now you're putting the drone up and you're going searching for this deer that was gut shot? And in some of these states, once you locate and it's alive, it's over. Well, now you just left a deer in the woods.
Can't you come back later? I imagine a lot of drone operators don't want to come back to a location later, or they'll charge another fee.
Well, in some
Yeah.
cases, it's illegal to pursue that deer after you put the drone in the air and you find it alive.
So you wouldn't be able to put the drone back in the air again later to
You wouldn't be able to
relocate.
pursue the deer at all legally.
Oh, so wait times becoming. See, what I was my line of thinking was I didn't know that, so I was thinking, yeah, if it's a liver shot deer, I'm gonna go ahead and look for it because if it is still alive when I find it, because you know how liver shot deer are, they could die in minutes, they could die 20 hours later.
Right.
It's a gamble. Um, I'd locate it alive, then I'd just tell the hunter I'll be back out again to find it 10 hours later or 6 hours later, whatever it is, and it won't cost you any additional because there is always that chance it's already dead, and I don't want the meat to spoil. But if it ends up being in a state where you can't, if you find it alive, you can't launch again, then wait times become very relevant.
Right. And that's something. So there's a lot of drone guys that aren't dog guys that just don't know how to analyze this stuff. So that's what we're putting together is a training program, training outline
So
for.
do you have, sorry for interrupting, do you have kind of an outline of how that goes? So, I mean, like if I call you up and say, hey, bring your drone over, I got a deer, what are you going to, what is your test to that
So
operator?
we are going to teach a thorough hunter interview because again, some of these drone operators they've never tracked deer, they just know how to operate a drone.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to teach a thorough hunter interview, some proper key questions to ask that will identify, well, maybe this is where it was hit, um, and go through, hey, this is typical reactions or common reactions for this shot placement, or, and then have the different colors of blood, different colors of hair, why it's important. And I know one person said, oh, well, my drone's heavy, and if you got to walk in there with the drone, well, leave your drone in the truck, lock it up, and
Yeah.
go analyze or ask for some pictures or something. So we're putting this stuff in place for those people that just doesn't know. And that way it's just making it a higher chance of recovery, more ethical practices. Um, and like I said, some states, once you put a drone in the air, you can no longer pursue that game.
They said
Um,
their drone is heavy. Well, then just fly it to the hit site and then land it.
yeah,
You don't have to
yeah.
carry.
So
Some of these
right,
drones could just pick you up and carry yourself there.
but even Darren, when I mentioned it to Darren, he's like, "Well, we don't go look at the hit site for the drone." And then he stops. He's like, maybe we should. And that's a dog guy. If you see he takes the dog out there, he's going to go look at the hit site. He's going to look see where's this deer hit.
I mean,
Um,
that's kind of my initial thought, of drones. It's like if I had a drone and I went out there to recover a deer for someone, I would say mark on the map where you shot it and which way it ran, and then I would take off and start looking. That. But I'm not a drone person, but that's kind of my thoughts. But yeah, it makes sense, especially where there's laws where once you see it alive, you can't continue pursuing it with the drone. It would make sense to kind of get a feel for the wait times and decide when to launch.
yeah, and what a lot of that is just like scouting with drones in many states is illegal. Well, that's essentially what that is. You're locating that deer. You give them a GPS pinpoint, say, "Hey, your deer's alive. Here it is. You do what you want to do." Well, I mean that comes into some ethics and
Well,
uh,
that's what we do with dogs all the time. I mean,
Yeah, but
I
some of
found
those states you can't dispatch.
yeah we can't dispatch up here, and I come up on a deer in the middle of the night, it's still alive. I drop a pin and say, "Here's where your deer is. Tomorrow morning, go there, and you'll find him dead." And that's what usually happens.
right.
Um, but if they wanted to get technical about it, they could say, "Yeah, I was hunting them with a dog," But that's why we have the law rewritten. I think it just comes down to a gray area. They just need to have legislation passed to correct the gray areas and rewrite
But
it
here's the other
fairly.
side of it. A drone operator that does not know deer recovery, like a dog person, they fly the drone, they see the deer standing up, it's alive. Hey, your deer, I found your deer, it's alive, it's going to be good. Well,
Yeah,
no, it's
and then it
not. It's
dies
gut
4 hours
shot. It's
later.
alive. It's walking around because it's not. It's
Yeah,
not. The health hasn't declined enough yet.
yeah,
So that's part of that, trying to help educate the people that just doesn't know, and
yeah.
it'll just
I
lead
think
to
that's a
more
good
recoveries.
idea. I think that's a good idea because we see it with
Um,
hunters all the time. As trackers, we see them comment on pictures or video of a deer getting shot. It's like, oh, you'll find him 60 yards away, and I'm like, no, dude, that's like back in the liver, you know, or back in the guts, and they don't understand.
You might jump
anatomy,
him in
or
60 yards.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Or you hit them in the, they can hit them in the high shoulder, and they're like, oh, that's one lung. I'm like, no, that's above the spine. We see that all the time, obviously, and
Yeah.
so I imagine some of these drone operators that don't have the tracking experience that the dog tracker does, they probably have those same preconceptions.
Yep, and that's why we thought about doing this, because they're here, you know, whether we like it or not. I mean, of course, I'm a dog first person, but I do have a drone because it's another tool. So there's two things here. Vicky added to what I said. Some states have a post drone wait time when the deer is alive, which we discussed. Brent Dale asked, "Will the app disallow drones in states where it is not legal?"
Um, no, and for the same reason, I won't disallow a dog tracker that lives in a state where it's not legal. Because, for instance, I live in Minnesota. It used to not be legal here, but I traveled to Wisconsin and tracked. Um, and we can't police the whole nation, So if there's a tracker in Minnesota or a drone operator in Minnesota, and he's qualified to be on the app, I will allow him on the app because he may fly over in Wisconsin and recover deer. So I
Right.
can't. That's. I mean, we have our privacy policy, our terms of use. It's just like if you work for Uber, they're not going to police you if you're drinking and driving. You're going to get arrested by the police for that. So if
Right.
you're doing something illegal in Minnesota, like flying a drone, it's the DNR that's going to get you. They're not going to come after us. Now they may come to us and say, hey, this guy took a request on the app for, they may ask for our help in that regard as far as prosecution, but we're not going to be policing what people do. That's you obey the laws yourselves.
Right. So we'll go to Walker Knight real quick. He says, "Is it too late to become an apprentice in Florida for this upcoming season? This will be my second season tracking. Only had 7 last season. Looking to do a little more." Yes, Walker, go on there and fill out the application. We will be getting with everyone once that deadline closes, and so it's not too late.
Never too late.
Right. Yeah, even after the deadline closes, we still accept people that their phone number just doesn't get on the list for this year, and we have to do that. I mean, because we track too. If we
Yeah.
keep adding people, it just becomes too much.
Yeah, I think all networks do that way. If we have a deadline to be on our map, you can still join our network after the deadline, but I'm not going to go through there and edit our map every time someone joins. It gets
Right.
edited once.
Yeah, we don't even enter them in after the season, after our deadlines.
Yeah.
You'll be next year before you do it. Many as we got, man, that's a full-time job.
So Snell Game Recovery came in with a good question. So part of this was already answered. Chris, it says, "I'm new to the app and jumped on late. Does the app ask the hunter where the hit was?" Yes, it does. But here's the one I like. Could it suggest wait times based off of that response?
Yes, and we're going to be building that into it again, and we're going to be improving the images. So, when you were going through the questions that asked the hunters earlier, is like what was the distance of the shot and how far up was the hunter elevated? There's going to be an algorithm built into there. So once a certain distance and height matches the view of the deer. We've been trying to work on putting a 3D deer into the app, but it's very expensive and complicated to make it look good. So what we're going to do is a kind of a shortcut for now is based on your shot distance and height, it'll change the deer from elevated to ground level perspective, and then based on what you say the deer is doing, like quartering away, quartering to, whatever, it'll change the deer image in that. Right now, it just shows a static deer standing sideways, and that
Right.
kind of is deceiving when you're a hunter and the deer was standing hard quartering away and you're trying to pick a grid, and it makes it. It's better if it gives a visual to the tracker and for the hunter. So those will be that is in the app where you pick the location, but to tag onto that, we will be improving that so the deer will actually position, and it will position to which side of the deer was the entry on, because that's important, because of where the liver's position and stuff. And did you hit the deer quartering away on the right side of the deer or the left side, and then it'll swap the images accordingly. So we think that's important, but also for the analytics, that's important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's That's a key thing. But at the end of the day, 90% of hunters I track for shot it perfectly.
Yeah, they all do. That's why they tracked it 400 yards before they finally called us. I mean,
All
I
right.
did that last year. I shot one. I still think it was a perfect shot. And I ended up tracking it 300 yards, and then it came to a clump of blood, and now I'm scratching my head. Was it a perfect shot?
All right. Well, we got one more question. We're going to have to wrap things up here soon. It's been an hour and 15 minutes, and I know we got some
Oh, I
stuff to
thought this
do
thing was going
outside
to
of
go
here.
like 3 hours.
Yeah. Hey,
I was
sometimes.
prepared. I was
Yeah.
prepared.
So Michael Pritz asked, is there a limit on how many times a hunter can post a track? Example, hunter posted track, someone accepts track, goes, doesn't find it, and he posts again asking for another dog multiple times.
No, it's not built into the app now to limit it. We had mentioned limiting it for the mere fact that sometimes a hunter would submit a request like in a hurry, and then he'd submit another one just a few minutes later, and then we'd get multiples of the same request before a TrakR had got it. We talked about putting a time limit on that particular login or that hunter, but maybe we add that anyway and say they can't post more than once in 24 hours or something. And we've had hunters do that. Have a TrakR come out, the TrakR mark is complete, and then they submit another request, and they say just that. The dog came out, the TrakR came out, and I just think the deer's dead, still out there, because they're looking for another TrakR to give it another shot. Most times, because here's the benefit of a network. Most time on our network, that's not necessary for the hunter to do. We tell them if we feel like our dog is for some reason having a bad day or an off day, we will call another TrakR and say, hey man, can you run this track if you got time behind me just to make sure I'm not missing it? Or we can tell the hunter, look, if you're not 100% satisfied, I can get you another TrakR out here. It may be hard to do that. Some of the TrakRs may not want to come up behind a dog that they know is well trained and usually finds the deer when they're dead. But you can give it a shot. So right now, to answer your question, no, that's not built into the app. They can still submit multiple requests, but that's something for consideration for sure.
Hey, would it be too difficult to add in there in one of the series of questions for the hunter, has
Yep.
another dog been on there?
Yep, that's one of the things that's being added. Actually, as soon as you started asking, I knew what you were getting at. We're gonna when we update the questionnaire for the hunters, like whether they want their request to go out to dogs or drones or both. One of the questions will be, has this deer already been tracked by another tracking team? And if they say yes, then we'll say a dog or a drone or they have to answer that question. And so when you see it pop up on the app, maybe we show it highlighted as like a previously tracked request, so kind of give you an alert. But yeah, that is one of the questions we'll be adding to the requests here soon.
That's awesome. And Kyle Parks has a question. How many hunters have downloaded the app?
I don't have access to that personally. Ryan is able to dig that up. One of the co-founders occasionally. I think we're right around 15,000 right now, which is not bad in my opinion. My daughter asked me about that today. She's while we were getting lunch, and I said I think it's around 15,000. She's like, how many hunters are there in the United States? I said like 15 or 20 million deer hunters, I guess. She's like, and you only got 15,000 downloads. That's pathetic. And I'm like, yeah,
Leave it to a
it's a new
kid.
app. Yeah, it's a new app. It's not TikTok. Um, and that's the thing. The app doesn't have a lot to do on there right now for a hunter other than submit a request and or look at the analytics. And the analytics right now, it's basically just deer, and you don't see a whole lot of graphics that rotate and show different things. So that's why we're expanding on that with the heat maps. If you go and look at that mock-up I posted on social media with the heat maps, that heat map is actually accurate from data we collected last year as far as recoveries, and you can kind of see the low recovery areas. It's the shape of the shoulder bone, the leg bones, that little V. The arrows or the arrows that hit on that bone have a lower recovery rate, and then you get into like behind the bones, then it goes way up. A lot of those I think were just single lung shot deer. But we're going to be expanding on that, and the app will be great when it gets to that point.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Do you have anything, Ralph, you wanted to add or ask? Or
No, I'm fine.
well,
Like
Shane,
the
I sure
infamous
appreciate
I
you coming
smoked.
on.
Do
Yeah,
I?
You
man, my
know,
pleasure.
Yep.
I was talking about that
yeah,
comment over there, the infamous I smoked him.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's about every track. But yeah, we've been excited to have you come on and share this stuff because we get a lot of questions, and we hear some kind of more negative feedback of like, well, I haven't got any tracks off of it. Don't give up on it, guys. It's new.
Yep.
Um,
And
it's
you can
gonna gain
always,
traction.
yeah, you can always send your direct calls to the app. And the benefit to that is you're helping us collect more data. You're helping get the word out because you tell your hunter that called you direct, say, hey, there's an app, just submit a request and accept me as your tracker. Oh, I didn't know there was an app. And you're helping get the word out that way. And then, like I said, you're collecting data for yourself that you'll be able to look at when we build out the analytics, because you'll be able to go to your profile and look at your personal analytics, like all the deer you tracked on the app. You can say, oh, I have a recovery rate of 42%, and the deer I tracked on average go this far, or everything you'll see in the public analytics, you'll be able to see in your personal analytics, and only you'll be able to see that stuff. So there's some
That's
good
great.
things coming.
That's cool.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, I mean, Shane puts out some awesome statistics every year. I recommend following him personally. And again, if you want to share your social media stuff, how they can find the TrakR, your personal, whatever you want to share. If you want to go ahead and do
Yes.
that now.
Yeah, so our website is gettrakr.com. And then you can go, there's all the download links there. And then you can, our social media, Instagram is Instagram/GetTrakR, and Facebook, the same thing, GetTrakR. And if you want to help support us, like I said, this app is free for hunters and trackers to connect, and we're trying to keep it that way. Think of it as a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe. If you want to contribute to the analytics, go subscribe for a year. It's $20. It'll help us put money into building out app out better, or go to the website and pick up a hoodie or a T-shirt. We would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, and again, I want everyone to know that how good of a job and thorough job you're doing at ensuring that there's quality trackers for the hunters. And that you are working with the people within each state to make sure that
Yeah.
you're doing your due diligence to provide quality trackers.
Yeah, and I have to send a big thank you out to yourself and all the folks around the nation that are helping me vet these trackers and approve these. And the hunters should, I'm sure they'll be appreciative of the fact that all those folks are helping to ensure that when they submit a request on the app, they're going to have a good opportunity of recovery, or the best opportunity of recovery. That's our main focus. We want to give them the best opportunity of recovery.
That's right. And real quick, Mike Payton asked if he can copy the logo to put a sticker on his truck.
Yeah, he could do that. Free
Okay.
advertising for us.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be adding some decals on our web store actually. So if you wanna purchase one of those later, when I post them on there, you can. But he's welcome to create his own sticker and put it on his truck.
All righty. Well, again, we really appreciate it, and we'd like to have you on again sometime. Maybe talk tracking and training, and but I wanted this one to be about the app because there has been so many questions coming into us about it, and we do think it's a great resource. Another hammer in the toolbox, as Vicky would say.
Yeah.
So,
I really appreciate you having me on, giving me an opportunity to answer some of these questions.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ralph, you too.
Yep.
Even though you didn't talk much.
Yeah. I'm with Kenny. That usually happens.
well, everything was geared towards you, and I don't sometimes. These comments show on one side and not the other. So there are questions, comments. So just how it rolls sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. All righty. Well, we'll see everyone again
See y'all later.
this time next week. And thanks again, Shane.
Yep. Thanks a lot. See y'all later.